guys, welcome back to the Chad and Mel Movie Hour. If you are watching this, you either happen upon this by pure accident, and I don't know whether we should thank you or apologize, or you've been with us since the beginning of the Alien Predator saga, which was began with Predator. Literally 6 months ago, we uploaded the first video in this 10 saga series. So thank you if you participated. Look at that beautiful logo. Look, it's upside down. It's still gorgeous. Yeah, so if you're here on the channel, no one can hear you scream. Fasten your seatbelts because this is the 10th and final Chad and Mel movie hour for the Alien Predator saga. So cheers.
Cheers.
Gorgeous.
And
okay.
Another VHS in really good condition.
Is that
Don't ask me how these are in such great condition. I honestly don't know. This one I bought from Blockbuster, which I think it doesn't really count if it's like a rental video.
It counts,
But,
and it's more badass that it has the Blockbuster sticker on it. But is that theatrical or the assembly?
It says just to remind, please rewind. Thanks. The end. Blockbuster video. This is the theatrical version, but of course I have the Blu-ray that has both versions. I don't feel like for this film we needed or asked for another version. Like, the theatrical was fine. The only thing cool about the other version of it is that you see more of like what they had in mind for the original ending, which is where they end more on Earth with like them flying over Earth kind of, and Ripley and Call in like a cool moment at the end. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. But we did not need that ridiculous opening sequence with the like bug creature that you think is an alien.
Okay, we all right. So we did not. It was a hot mess, but I want to preface this. We talked a little bit about this in the Alien 3 video.
We did.
God knows I got the two movies conflated so many times in that video because I went back and rewatched the assembly cut version of Alien 3 and then went and watched the special edition of Resurrection, which, to your point, in the special edition of Resurrection, the opening shot is what appears to be the mouth of a xenomorph, and then the camera pulls back and you see that it is that mouth, but it's on a fly or a mosquito inside of somebody's ship or shuttle. It was a horrible way to open the movie, but
it was terrible.
It was still like I was pleased that I was taken by surprise because it got me.
Yeah, I'll tell you this though. So when the movie first came out in '97, I got the novelization. And the novelization
that is so hardcore, Jack.
I know. Yeah.
I used to read novelizations of movies all of the time. Like
I love movie novelizations.
And of 12 Monkeys because I went through my Brad Pitt phase, but that is the answer, and I appreciate that. Continue.
So the book opens the same way. It opens with a bug, and it's actually like satisfying in the book because you're just imagining it, and it like I don't know how they did it, but it thrilled me in the book. I don't know why, but seeing it with the unfinished special effects and the special not so special edition,
right?
Yeah, it's not a movie that anyone needed a special edition for.
No, agreed. I couldn't agree more. And there's a couple of like scenes that were clearly not from the theatrical version, but they were so like not memorable that, to your point, like we didn't ask for it, we didn't want it, we got it, I watched it, here we are. Thank God it's the end of this journey.
Yeah, it's kind of sad to end this journey on this film. It's funny because actually it's not it's probably not the worst film in the franchise actually. But when you originally just had the first four. What's that?
I said remind the audience, to your opinion, which is the worst in the franchise.
What did I Requiem, right? Alien vs Predator, Requiem.
Yeah, but I think Covenant was like a close second.
Yeah, and then Covenant. I mean, Covenant has really cool. Yeah. Anyway, yes, yeah. So, but originally you didn't even have AVPs. They hadn't done any of that yet in 97. You only had Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, and then we got Resurrection, which I was so excited for because this would be the first film that I actually saw in theaters upon its initial release. Because I wasn't lucky enough to see Alien 3 in theaters, which you were. But so this was the first one that I saw in theaters. And I was like, I remember I was in middle school and I was like writing on my notebooks, like the date that it was going to come out. I would write that everywhere. I was like, people made fun of me. I was like, whatever. It's going to be awesome. It definitely was not awesome. I was just kind of like, I liked it when I saw it, but I was just kind of like, huh, okay. It just seems so like different with this director, Jean-Pierre Jeunet, directing it, whose films I hadn't seen at the time yet. But of course, later I went back and saw Delicatessen, City of Lost Children, Amelie, like all of his films. And he's an incredible director, but he should not have done this movie. It's just, he put too much of his style on it. And we discussed about how all the filmmakers have done this in this franchise, but this is a case where it just didn't work. Like, it didn't work for this French filmmaker visionary to put his stamp on it so heavily. He also reuses a couple actors who I'll say now. Dominique Pignon, French actor who's cool, and Ron Perlman, who maybe not so cool.
I love Ron Perlman.
Do you love him? Okay, I'll give it to you.
And I'll tell you
he's not cool in this movie.
No, he's not, but I'll tell you why I love him. I mean, City of Lost Children, if anybody hasn't seen it, go for your life.
One of my favorite films.
And that the aesthetic of City of Lost Children is strong, and you can see that aesthetic in this movie. But what's so interesting is that Amelie came out like not a year later or something, or maybe even the same year.
No, a few years later, 2001.
I thought I was still in high school when Amelie came out. All right, I digress. But it's like, to think that the guy that made Amelie made Alien Resurrection, is like, my brain begins to like short circuit.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you why I like Ron Perlman. It's not because of this movie. I did like City of Lost Children, but I thought he was brilliant in Sons of Anarchy. So I digress.
So it's City of Lost Children apparently is why Fox offered him this film. Originally, they wanted to give it to the director of Trainspotting, which I think it probably would have turned out better.
Danny Boyle?
Yes.
Wow.
So that's who they were like, had their sights on, and it didn't work out. So then it ended up that Jean-Pierre Jeunet became the director, and he said in an interview something that's so telling, I think. He said, I really wanted to like take advantage of this opportunity to go to Hollywood and make a very American, like, blockbuster Hollywood movie. So he was really going for that, which is kind of a shame, I think, because his style is so distinct and eccentric that he could have really done something more like out there and weird with it. But the story is so kind of like conventional in a way, and the acting and the lines are so American blockbuster type of movie, like typical American lines, that it kind of ruins whatever style of his is in there, because his stamp is kind of on everything visually, but not with the dialogue or the story, of course, which he didn't do. But one thing that I found that's really interesting, which I'll say, I have some interesting facts for you.
Yes.
So I did some research on the android terminology. So they're always either called androids or synthetics when they're being called by like a technical term in this franchise. But they use those, interchangeably. So there isn't like one that's like more official, but it's either synthetic or android. So we have another android in this film. But before I get to that, I have some facts for you. I just wanted to get that research out of the way. So Sigourney Weaver, how much do you think she was paid for Alien, the first one, in 1979?
Pennies on the dollar, nothing, I'm sure.
Yes, 35 grand.
Yeah.
she made for Alien, which is
Yeah.
understandable. You know, it was 1979 or 78
Right.
when they made it. She was
Right.
totally unknown. But so yeah. How much do you think she was paid for Alien Resurrection?
I don't know, like 20 million.
You'll probably guess too high.
Like
yeah.
the highest grossing actress would make that year? I don't know, like 10 million.
It was 11 million, but which is pretty for the time. She
That's a lot.
described it as they basically drove a dump truck of money to my house. Because even for Aliens, the second film, she was only paid $1 million, which is a huge jump from 35 grand, which she got paid for Alien. And $1 million was like a big deal in 1986 for a woman or anyone to like lead a film with $1 million was like a big deal. But yeah, 11 million for Resurrection, and she's worth every penny. All the reviews that are positive cite her specifically. I mean, without her, the film would be just nothing. So.
And it's funny that you bring that up because in Alien 3 we talked about like towards the end we were like, what the hell? Because she said, you had shared with us, and I think this came from Wreckage and Rage, the Alien 3 behind the scenes documentary, but correct me if I'm wrong on that, but you had mentioned in our Alien 3 review that she was very happy with Alien 3 being the final point on the narrative. Third act, if you will, of this narrative. And we were like, well, what the hell compelled her to do Resurrection? Now we know.
She said, yeah, she even admitted that it was, she liked two things. She liked the money. And she liked that it really wasn't Ripley anymore. It was a mix of DNA in her, of Alien and it was Ellen Ripley's character's DNA mixed with Alien DNA. So now she could play with that as a character. So it gave her more meat as an actress in the role. And then the money. Yeah. She probably was thinking, you know, I'm not attached to that many franchises where I could really demand a high, plus she was a producer on it. So I'm assuming she got, in Aliens, she got a cut of the proceeds, or the profits. And so I'm assuming she got a cut of Resurrection too. Like, you know, merchandising and box office and that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
So 11 million was just what she got paid for the actual performance. And like I said, she's worth every penny. Yes. I think this is the first film in the Alien series where she really is carrying the film. Do you know what I mean? Like, 100%. The other films are good around her. I mean, of course, Alien 3 has so many problems, but
still a great movie.
Still a great movie. This, not such a great movie. She's really carrying it. Like, you take her out of this, it's not really watchable.
No.
That I remember I was really upset at the end because they did that thing where they had the queen, but they like the newborn was born, which is like the new creature, which I hate. And it like knocks the queen's like head off. And I was like so excited to see the queen again, and then it kills it right away. And
2 seconds.
It was terrible. It was such a disservice to the queen, and such an honor to this new character, which I hated, which was ugly, which didn't look alien at all. I mean, it just looked like a stupid monster.
You're jumping ahead because that's on page 4 of my notes, okay? How ugly.
I'm all over the place. I have a lot to say.
No, you're so right, though. Like, because they very easily could have, like, gone the way of Prometheus and Covenant with, like, complete reimagining and cast a different lead actress. So if they had done that, that movie would have likely been, like just bigger pile of shit than it already was.
Straight to video.
Yeah, right. What's funny is that, you know, we've talked about our memories of seeing these movies like for the first time, and this, you mentioned this was the first one you got to see in middle school, like in the theater as a premiere. I remember seeing this movie vividly in the theater. I was in 10th grade, and we saw it at the Downtown Disney Springs AMC, and it was like the anticipation leading up to this movie was pretty like intense. Like this was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I just remember, I was with like my group of friends or whatever, and I just remember we all came out of the theater and we're 15, 16 years old, and we were all just like, what the fuck?
What the fuck? Yeah.
No, thank you. Like, no. Even 97, like adolescent, like we were like a second grader could have watched that movie and been like, I would like my money back, please. But I do remember going to see it very vividly. And what's interesting is when I was rewatching it, like for the nth time the other night to do the homework for this, I had never realized this before, but Joss Whedon was a writer on this.
Yes.
That blew me away because I mean, obviously this was very early in his career. He was probably already on Buffy and stuff like that, but like I had never paid attention to the credits enough to see Joss Whedon, and I was just like, okay, all right, this makes a little bit.
He wrote a sequel to it too that they didn't make, where Ripley was on Earth, and she refused to do it because she thought it was trivial to just come to Earth and do the Earth movie.
That would be trivial, but now like that you're telling me that, like I would still like to see that movie, just like I went and paid money to see Resurrection. Like if you give me another
but isn't it like the ultimate disappointment that instead of building on this amazing
narrative
IP right, instead of building on this IP that they now own as a company, every time they put out another movie, it's like it's such diminishing returns. But I mean, so much so. I mean, you kind of expect it, but why is it always that way? And it's always such a disappointment because you're returning to something that you have such reverence for, and it's always done a disservice. I don't know. You would think there would be more attention focused on getting it right because now they're protecting something that they know is so likable and profitable, but it's almost like they show less respect to it. It's weird.
But I think the reason for that is, and we talk about this like probably ad nauseum in the Alien 3 video, is that Alien 3 was such a departure from what had come before, which was Aliens, which was blockbuster action, James Cameron, like, giving you exactly what you want, popcorn, popcorn, popcorn. Then you do this 180 and all of a sudden you're expected to think and like, watch like a more artistic vision. So I think Alien Resurrection was probably the box office's course correction because obviously no one liked Alien 3 when it first came out. So they were like, okay, we're going to do this. No, we've got to go back to the Aliens formula and give people popcorn. And that's exactly what the fuck it was.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just upsetting. But so what else was I going to say about this? There's so much more to get into. You want to talk about the cast a little bit?
I would love to talk about the cast because I have two of like my favorite people. Well, 1.5 of my favorite people are in this.
Well, I'll tell you two guys that I think are hot in this.
I bet one of them's Michael Wincott, and if it's not,
of course it is. It sure is. And the other one is Gary Dourdan.
Which one is he?
He's the guy with the like dreadlocks.
Oh, the black guy.
Yeah, look, he's got like model looks.
Yeah, he's blue eyes and the dreads. Yeah,
strong, silent type. Yeah.
He's done a lot of TV since then. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, and if you look him up, he's also done a lot of like misbehaving since then and getting arrested and stuff. So that's a shame. But both those guys I think are like hot in this movie, and I actually love Winona Ryder too. Like, can we just? I mean, of course now she's having her renaissance with Stranger Things and so a few other projects, but I always loved her a lot growing up from like Heathers and just so many things. Of course, Beetlejuice, like that was my childhood big time, and I'm sure you can relate. So I just loved her so much, but I mean, she doesn't super like grab me in this film, but
She doesn't, but I thought it was such. I remember going. I can't remember seeing the trailer to this movie before it came out. I remember like the hype, but I can't remember if Winona Ryder was in the trailer, because my like recollection is that when I first saw her come on the screen, I was shocked that she was in the movie, or
right.
maybe I was shocked at like
I
what
don't.
she gets revealed to be, which is the synthetic. But I
Right.
thought it was a really cool twist that she was the droid, the robot, the artificial person. But
Synthetic.
yeah, she didn't. She was. It was cool to see Winona Ryder in the movie, but
Yes, she's amazing in a lot of ways. She can do no wrong for me because I'm just a fan of hers. But
great.
I just don't see her really as a android. I don't know what that is. And I don't know why, but she didn't play an android in the same way. It's interesting because she's the only female android that we have in this series,
Right.
which is kind of really interesting. But she's also, I think, universally like the least popular, right? Because you have Ash and Bishop, and David is so well done, even in the later, more recent films, that this just stands out as a less memorable performance. I think not all her fault. Some of it is the writing, and
Right.
they didn't give her a lot to do. She was neither like a really good guy or a really bad guy. She was kind of somewhere in the middle, and she was kind of having her own what do you call it,
She had her own
existential moments, yes, where she was just going inward with her own existential dilemmas, I guess. But there is,
I have some thoughts on what you just said. Like Winona, to your point, she wasn't given a lot to work with. Not that anybody else in the cast was either. It was shit writing, shit dialogue, but like it was cool that you got your first female android. Woo woo, fantastic, girl power. And this is also, we have to remember, this movie came out like at the height of like Spice Girls, like this was like girl power. Like they were obviously like pandering to an audience.
Right.
As much as I love Winona Ryder, and I think she's just a brilliant actress. The work that she's doing in Plot Against America, if you're not watching this on HBO, fix your life. But Winona Ryder, I think what it was for me, Winona Ryder takes me out of the movie because I just see Winona Ryder.
That's a great point.
I didn't see enough of a character for her to, I was just like, oh, that's Lydia with a pixie cut pretending to be an android. Like I was taken out of the movie. But also,
yeah,
interesting, and I'm sure this is in both cuts of the movie, but I had forgotten that Call, which is her character's name in the movie, is a auton, which is another term that we're introduced to, which is a droid or a synthetic person built by other synthetic people. So it's the first time we're being introduced to a synthetic that is built by other synthetics, and also she's very much, to your point, she's very existential. She's very much like the conscience of the film or of the cast, because she doesn't want like
which further removes her, right, in a way.
Right. So yeah, I think that she could have done more if they had given her more, but it was still like, it was cool to see her, but then it was also like, no, all I can see is Winona Ryder, if that makes sense.
Right. And when you watch interviews with her about the film from like on set of the film, she just seems kind of wide-eyed and like super excited to be a part of the franchise. But she doesn't talk a lot about her character work and stuff like that, because I don't think she had done as much as maybe some of the other actors that played androids, maybe because it just wasn't required via the script. But yes, there is a really cool moment where she like plugs herself in like a chapel in the ship, and that's just kind of cool to see, because I'm obsessed with any android imagery where like you see inside of them, you see their inner workings and stuff like that.
And you can definitely how like Lisa Joy and Jonathan Nolan, who are the writers and showrunners of Westworld, clearly took a page from this, because that's how the robots in Westworld like hack themselves, or like, you know, connect with themselves, you know, through the skin like an IV, like, you know, much like she does in film. So yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I thought great scene. And it's a really great scene between her and Ripley too, because they're bonding, and it's, yeah, whole thing. Do you want to talk a little bit more about Michael Wincott? Because I do.
Oh, sure. I mean, of course he's, you know, gorgeous, and he's the captain of the ship, the Betty ship in this film, and he brings the Betty to the bigger ship in the film, the Auriga, in
Yeah.
order to sell kidnapped humans in cryostasis to the general, and
And we do not know why they're doing it at the beginning of the movie, but we will find out.
right. So what do you want to say about it?
I want to say Michael Wincott was definitely like took up a lot of space in the best possible way in cinema in the 90s and like early to mid 2000s. Like Michael Wincott, to me, like I'm ready for Michael Wincott to have a renaissance. He is beautiful. I think he's beyond talented. I just have such visceral memories of him as the villain in The Crow. I mean, he's always he's just perfect. He's magnificent. I don't think there's anyone quite like him as an actor, and I just think he is delicious, not just like physically, but just as an actor, and the character work that he's done, and the icon, the under fucking rated icon that Michael Wincott is, like, and his voice. I digress. I just was so happy to rewatch this movie and just get like a little bit of a Michael Wincott fix. But
yeah,
and the characters, you know, great. He's a very good sarcastic badass.
right. I agree. If you want to talk about creature design, I have some things to say.
Yes, please. But also, I do want to mention, and I do not know the actor's name, but the gentleman that's in the wheelchair, I thought it was really awesome. You know, with my 2020 lens on, it's awesome. But also, even for its time, like, it was really cool to see a differently abled person. Like,
That's Dominique.
Thank you.
Dominique Pignon, French actor, and he is one of the ones that Jean-Pierre Jeunet reuses in his films.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's right. And so I just think he does fantastic in the movie. And when you said I was thinking of the woman, but yeah, no, he's amazing. And yeah, I just think that it was an awesome kind of what do you call it? Like plot device to introduce to like.
Right.
You know, how is a guy in a wheelchair who's paralyzed going to like deal with this, you know? And it was really well done, I think.
I liked that too. And you have Brad Dourif in this film.
Who's Brad Dourif?
Oh my gosh. So Brad Dourif is the voice of Chucky, and he was in Chucky, the first film, and then he was the voice of Chucky in every film. Like however many, there were many Chucky films until the most recent one. Yeah. And he was also in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He's just been this amazing character actor in just a plethora of film. Like he just pops up everywhere. He was in Exorcist 3.
Who is he? I can't.
Brad Dourif. He's just one of the most incredible actors of our time. He's really unsung. He was in Lord of the Rings.
Yes, I have him here. I just didn't know his name.
Blue Velvet. Awesome actor. A really good actor, like an actor's actor. Could do stage work, could do film work. So he.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I have him down. I just realized that was his name.
And he's not given a lot again. Like no one is really given anything good to work with in this film. No. But I just had to mention him because Brad Dourif.
Yeah, he's an iconic villain too. I mean,
I
love him as Wormtongue in Lord of the Rings and everything else. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Okay,
and I'm a huge fan of all the like serial horror movies that started in the 80s, like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and of course Chucky is in that pantheon. So
Well, take us to church on creature design.
oh, so fuck the creature design in this film. Because like it just looks like an alligator or something dumb, and I'm like, what are you doing? It's like brown, it's the color of shit, and it's just like,
are we talking about the Xenos right now? Or are we talking about
the Xenos first?
Yeah,
the
let's
Xenos.
talk about the Abomination. Okay.
The Xenos were like halfway stripped of all their detail. Like every film they keep stripping them more and more detail. Alien 3 was the last time the Xenos like really looked great in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah.
But they look even worse in this film Resurrection than they do in any of the new films. Like I think they look cooler. The Xeno looks way cooler in Covenant than it does in Resurrection. I just think Resurrection's like the all-time low for these creatures. They look rubbery. They act just like dumb animals. It's very on par with the AVP films. AVP films even took the design really straight from Resurrection. So when you see them in AVP, they have a very similar shaped head, very similar type of skin, very similar tail, the similar legs that are like the chicken leg, where it's not like a human leg. It's like that weird leg.
The backwards knee bend.
Yeah. I don't think you need it, and I definitely don't like them. They're way too like slimy, like way too much slime.
There was a lot of moisture coming out of the mouth and just
and they just act really dumb too, and they're not that tall either. And you have Tom Woodruff Jr. returning in this film to play the alien, and he played the alien in Alien 3, and whenever he is the alien, it just looks like a person in a suit to me.
Yeah, you do not love Tom Woodruff. You said
no, and I feel bad because if you're watching, Tom.
Of course he's watching.
if he ever heard this, I would just feel terrible to say something bad about him, because I think he does it in earnest, but I just think he's not good.
I mean, if you're an actor, you're going to get judged. I just think it's hilarious that in the Alien 3 review, you were talking about him, and you said he makes poor acting choices as the Xenomorph, which I just think is brilliant.
Yeah.
But, they're definitely shorter in stature. To me, in this movie, they remind me of, like, raptors. They're very dinosaur. They're very Jurassic Park.
Right, yes.
They obviously are learning just much like the raptors learned problem solving.
That's Yautja, by the way.
Oh,
if you
Yautja.
can see that black shape there, that's Yautja.
Oh, Cindel's over here.
How is she?
She's better. She's better.
We need to discuss her mid-Resurrection review.
Of course we do.
Yeah.
The audience doesn't know we're talking about our cats. But yeah, no, I noticed in this movie there was a little bit more acid than we got in Alien 3, but I also did love this. Now, I loved it for all the wrong reasons. There's a lot, you can see the Xenomorphs breathing in Resurrection.
I hate that.
No, that's what I said. I love it for the wrong reasons. I liked it because it was just like scary and visceral, but like I know that it's silly because they're alien. Yeah. It's just like a very animal thing to be doing, like just hot breath coming out every time on camera.
Yes.
Like it was a very like, watching it, it's like, oh shit, like he's breathing on the motherfucker, like it's gonna happen. It's somebody's gonna get got.
Yeah.
But yeah.
They definitely seem faker too. I don't know if they just hold the shot on them longer, but like you can tell that it's not a creature. Like you can really tell. And I think what's so brilliant about Alien that you have to credit Ridley for is the way he filmed the alien. Not just because everyone says, oh, he didn't show it a lot. Like just in Jaws, you didn't see the shark a lot. And that's what's scary, is because your mind can always imagine something scarier. But they actually do show the alien in Alien. They're quick cuts, But it's
Right.
like it's not just that he didn't show it a lot, it's how he chose to show it. So like in one scene it's upside down, and then it's like crouching in a tunnel, and then it's like intertwined inside the wall. So every time you see it, it's like in a really different context.
Yeah.
And lots of close-ups, but different angles. So people thought the alien was always like morphing throughout the film, but he was just filming it very differently. None of that, of course, is present in Resurrection. It's just like, here it is, and it looks like a costume. Like it just looks rubbery and like, I mean, it's well done for like a big budget movie, but it just, there's no mystery to it, and I don't think it's scary at all, and it's terrible. And then to top it off, they introduce a new creature called the Newborn, which is just ridiculous. Nobody in the franchise that I know likes this thing.
No.
Unless they absolutely have abysmal taste. But most people, that was
They
like
won't
such a
like
bitchy
it.
thing to say. But most people don't like this creature. And it doesn't seem like it's from the world of the aliens. Like it just seems like any other monster type of monster movie creature. So like, what was
It's
the thinking
absurd.
behind this? I just don't know.
I'm sure they were trying to like give us something new, but they failed epically. Like
Right.
on, like I have in my notes, hate the baby,
Mm-hmm.
nose, and yeah,
needed...
nose. That it had that little like.
Oh yes. Oh.
A butterfly. Like what the fuck? It
And
was
it
like
snorted at one point, or like snapped its teeth or something weird. What would have been so cool is if they really had used a queen and like brought the queen back. That could have been so cool. I mean, the queen is so much cooler.
And to your earlier point, we get the queen for like a hot second, and then she gets there's like matricide because
Yes.
the newborn murders the queen because, and we can get into more detail on this. The newborn identifies Ripley as its true mother. Cool, great, but like it kills its mommy, and the mommy, like it was so heartbreaking when the queen like cries out like a. I mean,
and
it
when,
was so ridiculous. It was just like, no,
yes,
it's your mommy.
And when it does that, when it kills the queen, as a fan of this franchise, it felt like a betrayal as a fan of the franchise.
Yeah.
Because we love the queen so much, and no one liked this new creature. No one wanted this new creature. It just felt like such a betrayal to like get the queen back only to have her head like smashed in so frivolously. I mean,
frivolously is the word, because we talked about in the Aliens review how Aliens, as much of a popcorn movie as it was, really scratched all the itches. And if this was an attempt to like scratch itches, it did not. And like we wanted Queen, and then we got this like weird abomination that had like a little nose and like skeletal human eyes, and it had boobies. Nobody wanted to see those weird boobies. Like, get the fuck out of my face with
and
your
it had both genitalia, but then they had to like, it was apparently too much, even though it's an R-rated film. I don't know why they couldn't show it, but it had both genitalia. So they ended up with creative editing and then digital post-production, like CGI. They ended up removing it so that in wide shots they cover it over, or in close-ups you just don't see it. But if anything, they should have just done that if they really wanted to do that. Like, why remove it? But
I don't know. I mean,
that whole thing is a mess, I think.
Well, that harkens back to yet another imagining or iteration of the alien life cycle that you get in Resurrection, which you have Ripley as number 8, which it's not Lieutenant Ripley that we know and love because she killed herself at the end of Alien 3. May she rest in peace. But this is her DNA, which they had from Alien 3.
Right.
Used with various, maybe some face huggers, maybe some Xenos, maybe like all 3. I don't know what the recipe was. But this is basically hybrid Ripley, hybrid alien Ripley. And she's totally badass, and Sigourney just, again, does miracles with piles of poopy. But I will say that the scene where they go in maybe mid-movie and where they're trying to escape, you know, this merry band of misfits, and Ripley happens across the lab with the previous iterations of these clones or whatever you want to call them. To me, like to this day, is like one of the scariest, not scariest, but most upsetting scenes
Yes.
in the film. And we've talked about this a little bit in some of the other movies, movie reviews.
Upsetting is a great word for that.
Like whenever somebody like asks to die, that like gets me. And we talked about it with the chicken aliens who's in the cocoon that's like, you know, kill me. And then you have another moment that in what was it? Was an alien? Somebody else asks to die. I forget where it is, what other movie. But like when she gets through the lab and she finally sees the number 7, which is the most humanoid, and it's literally her face attached to like whatever that's been being kept alive and is just begging to be killed. Like that is super upsetting to me.
And she's great in that role too, of course.
Yeah. And
what
just,
is this woman not perfected?
I don't know. I wish she would do more. Like
I
today.
know, me too.
But
it does seem like for someone of her capability, it almost does seem like she has somewhat of a small filmography.
Yes, right? What's wrong with the world?
I don't know. I mean, because she's been acting since the 70s, basically.
And then she had to go and fucking do Avatar. Don't get me upset. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to me. Melissa, don't get yourself upset. But I just like the acting that she does in this movie with the garbage that she's dealt is magnificent. Like when you see her face looking at the version of her, the previous iteration of herself, when you see her baby, the newborn, for the first time, and she's got this conflicted, she manages to act with just her eyes, this conflict of like, I have to, you know, we talked, like, there was matricide, like the newborn killed the queen. Ripley knows she has to commit infanticide and kill her child, this newborn, because it's clearly, you know, not, we don't want it landing on Earth. It's an abomination. Even her being part alien knows it. So she's got this inner conflict the whole movie where she's like fighting against part of what she physically is in her DNA, and then she has to like kill her own child, and it's like she's acting the shit out of that shit.
Oh yeah.
Fucking stupid newborn wiggling its nose in her face, doing like a baby. Like what is happening?
It's disgusting, that creature. Have you ever seen
this movie is like on another level. Like did you pay attention to her nails? Like the whole movie, beautiful like tiny claws that are like dark black, like green.
So cool. And her outfit, how it's kind of like Xenomorph inspired. It has like the pipes there. Yeah. Oh, it's so badass, and it fits her to a T. And her hair is really beautiful. Yeah, she's amazing. And she's at an interesting age there where she's a little bit older, but she's so she's so beautiful in that stage of her life. And it's just interesting to see a woman at an older stage be as equally as beautiful and sexy and wear her age and not have like, you know, all the fillers and Botox. Like she clearly is older and has more lines, and it's all good. Like it's beautiful, and she's totally hot, and that in itself is awesome in this movie, I think.
We talked in Alien 3 about how like Ripley is so in her power throughout the entire film. You know, she's surrounded by rapists, she's surrounded by aliens, but here she is just like getting laid and taking no shit. Like she's just living her life. The one thing that I really appreciate about Resurrection is that you get that again and more so. Like you get
this was like her first chance to be like sexy.
Yes, and she's so sensual and so sexy and so in her power and so vulnerable because she is
Like, she was always sexy, but this is her like reveling in it as a character, even with the wardrobe and everything.
She moves her body, like the way
Yes.
she looks, like everything. But
Yeah.
it's like you have every iteration of Ripley in this Ripley number 8, which isn't really Ripley, and Sigourney
Right.
acting all of that because she's carrying all of this memory and this history, which I want to circle back to memory in a little while, but you have alien.
You do see all her previous Ripleys in this character. I never really thought about that, but you see them all like transparent, like you're looking through all of them at once, and she's holding all of them at the same time, plus the alien DNA.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, like, I hate myself because I'm this thing that I've been trying to destroy, but also it's part of me and I love it and I'm owning it. And it's just, where was the Academy Award nomination for her role in this? Because I think that performance, I know this is going to be a controversial statement, was worthy of a fucking something nomination because she's like, that's
where would they be without her in this film? I don't like the underwater sequence when you have like the alien underwater and it's completely CG. But this is the first alien film to really introduce CG. We only had like a few touches of it in Alien 3, not as much as people think. And then this is the first like full-on CG alien movie, because now we're like 5 years since Alien 3. So we're way more into like, we're past Jurassic Park and all that. So CG had really like broken open. And yeah, they did use a lot of miniatures and a lot of practical effects. Like they had a full newborn creature on set, and a lot of all the spaceships were actually practical because they didn't think that the CG spaceships looked real, because they don't. But so that's kind of cool that there were so many miniatures and practical things. But then it's almost like even more annoying when you do see the CG, because like two scenes come to mind. One is when you have that long underwater sequence where some of the actors almost actually died filming it because they had to go underwater for so long, and then they relied on like tapping out when they couldn't go anymore, and then someone had to like rush them like the mouthpiece of oxygen, like with a tank underwater. And at one point someone wasn't like that quick to get them oxygen, and someone like almost passed out. There were a lot of stories like that. But anyway, during that underwater sequence, there's a shot of the alien where it gets like blown up, like shot underwater, where the whole alien is like CG, and it's kind of obvious. And then the other CG moment is when that stands out to me. There's a few. When the newborn gets completely sucked through the window, it's like a really bad idea and bad special effect. It's one of those ideas that's like, oh, wouldn't that be cool if we could do that? But then like the more you think about it, the dumber like it actually is. Like it might sound good in theory, but like it's just bad in execution. And then you ultimately realize it was just a bad idea.
And bad narratively, like that ending was such
I think so, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think like that's something the franchise had been wanting to do, is like suck an alien out where it like completely like gets dismembered or something, that they could have never done that well practically. So but it just doesn't look good. And yeah.
No,
and there's a lot of browns, like because of the director. I think he has a very specific color palette, and so you went from like a lot of blue in Alien, and then Aliens, and then we talked about like the greens and stuff in Alien 3, and then there's a lot more browns in this film, which is not like, I'm just gonna say it's not a pleasant color. I mean,
including Ripley's costume, which is beautifully designed, but yeah, I mean it's tones of poopy, which you can get into that as much as you want. Yeah, I mean,
it's like, yeah.
There are things that the director did stylistically that I really liked, like even in the opening credits, like where and I think this is only in the special edition, but it kind of opens with one of the previous iterations of the Ripley clones getting like cut open with like, or somebody's getting cut open, like they're having a C-section basically, like they're extracting.
Ripley 8.
Oh, that's right. It is her. Okay, and they sew her back up, and then they keep her alive because she survived. It's coming back. Yeah. So they're basically doing that same thing to the humans that the merry band of misfits have brought to the ship, which you later find out are meant to be hosts to breed more Xenos. But that opening shot of the C-section I thought was really awesome.
Yeah.
And then you
that
see
is a cool shot.
Like after when she's recovering, and it's just like this, it's not in slow-mo, but it's just Ripley like in this sheer linen like wrap by herself.
Yeah.
And she's just kind of like writhing, and it's like very moth and cocoon like, and it's really, really beautiful. I mean, it's like
it is
like this chrysalis, and I loved that. And the other thing about this movie that is kind of a return to like the Aliens formula, like the blockbuster formula, is you have like really cheesy jokes, really shitty comic relief. But one thing that I really appreciated rewatching it, much like I appreciate the same thing when I rewatch Aliens, is just like it wasn't 2020 and people could still make like really bad jokes that you can't make anymore. This movie is especially misogynist. Like Ron Perlman is like constantly hitting on everybody, including Call and Ripley.
Yeah.
You know, he calls.
And Ripley has an unfortunate line.
Which one?
Where I don't think it lands well. Where she's like, "Who do I have to fuck to get off this ship?" And it's just kind of like you could tell a man wrote that for her to say. I'm sorry.
No, because Ron Perlman calls Call severely fuckable.
Yeah. And he tells Ripley in response to that, her saying, "Who do I have to fuck to get out of here?" He's like, she's like, "Who do I have to fuck to get off this boat?" And he's like, "I could get you off. Maybe not the boat, but
maybe not the way you want." Yes, yeah.
So, like, it's just like, yeah, I don't need it. Thanks.
Yeah. And I mean, there's really bad dialogue, but there's also like, I think there's some good one-line. But I say all of that to say, like, I just appreciated that, like, you can't do that anymore.
PC,
yeah. People like have a conniption, but I mean, there was some cool like dialogue. I think that Ripley got in particular, or Sigourney got. You know, especially when they find the one gentleman who's still alive but has the Xeno in him and his chest just hasn't burst yet, and she basically lays out the truth for him. She's like, "You're gonna die."
Yes.
She like literally like tells him the truth. I love it. He's like, you know, she's like, "You've got a thing inside of you, in like an hour and a half, like it's coming through your chest. You're dead. So sorry." And
like, he's I'm its mommy, or I'm its mother. Yeah.
I'm the monster's mother. Like, okay.
Yes.
And then at another point in the movie, somebody asks her something. I think it was Ron Perlman, who was like, "How did you survive this?" Because he's referring to like her earlier iterations as Lieutenant Ripley, and she's like, "I died." Check. Okay. And then what else does she say? There was another really good one-liner that I had. Where'd it go?
I kind of like the scenes with her and Call, but I don't feel like that relationship between them was developed enough. Do you know what I mean? I think they could have been a really powerful female duo together. And
there was a lot of mother-daughter-ness going on there, too, especially in the chapel scene that just never.
Yeah. When she allows her to like put the knife through her hand and stuff, all those scenes.
It's very intimate. It's very sensual, but it's very like maternal in a fucked up way. But I mean, what maternal relationships are.
I don't know why that I feel like Winona isn't that great in this film. I don't want to fault her for that because she's a talented actress, but in her scenes with Sigourney's clearly like nailing the scene, and there's something just not there with Winona.
She's not reciprocating the way that somebody like Sigourney deserves.
I think they kind of cast her a little bit late and off her name a little bit.
I'm sure.
Which might have been a disservice to her in preparation for the film. And who knows?
I mean, there's some really good, like, not thematically. Yeah, I guess thematically. Like, there's some good, like, almost gems in this movie in terms of, like, the metaphysics going on, around the mythology of this creature that just never get a chance to get fleshed out. But, like, there's one point where somebody says she's something of a predator, isn't she? And they're referring to Ripley, which I just think is just a great, like, meta thing, because she is literally a predator now, but she always has been. I mean, she's the only contender against the Xenomorph and the Queen. I don't know.
I don't know why, but there's a really silly scene that I just thought of where they're trying to escape the aliens, and then this guy almost runs into a spider's web and then screams and then shoots the spider with a gun.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very small spider, like a regular spider. And it was just like, did we need that comic relief, like, interruption at that moment? I mean, it's so silly and childish.
There were two comic relief moments, though, that I probably knew of before, but, like, in rewatching it, like, I was able to, like, really pay attention. When Ron Perlman, Call, and I think the French actor Dominique. I think it's the three of them, or maybe it's the black gentleman. I can't remember his name. I'm still calling him Black because he's the only black person in the movie, and I can't remember his name.
That's okay.
Don't come.
Gary Dordan.
They're in the cafeteria and they're watching, like, what's basically the equivalent of, like, QVC. And I thought that was funny, but, like, the best thing ever is when somebody references, and I forget who it is, somebody in the movie references Weyland Yutani, and Ron Perlman is like, oh, they got bought out by Walmart. And I was just like, take research, that's genius. Because
I ran across a fact that would be good to interject right here, that you would love. So, let me read you what I found. The origins of the Weyland Yutani name. Weyland Yutani Corporation was originally envisioned as an English-Japanese corporation that had moved over from the motor industry into spacecraft. The name was based on Leyland Toyota, which is a real company partnership. So Leyland Toyota to Weyland Yutani. So that's where Weyland Yutani came from. And I didn't remember that. And I just thought that was an interesting interjection there. But
love it. No, and in this movie, and this is one of, like, the things that I messed up in Alien 3. I was like, oh, when does this take place? 200 years in the future? And you're like, no, that's Resurrection. So Resurrection is 200 years after the events of Alien 3. And we now know that Earth is literally referred to as a shithole. And in the special edition, we get to see Earth. At the end, they land in Paris, and it's literally looks like the end of Terminator 2, or not the end of Terminator 2, but, like, when the machine, when Skynet becomes self-aware in the war and all that. It's basically Earth has just been.
And I really like that scene too. I wish they had left it in.
But we know that Earth is a shithole, and it's 200 years in the future. What was I going with this? Weyland Yutani. Oh, so it was just funny to me that he was just like with, like, deadpan. He was just like, oh yeah, Weyland Yutani's owned by Walmart now. I mean, that's just like, that was great. I loved it.
Oh yeah. So it's almost like, because they're saying like we as the audience and Ripley, who is, like, new to the times that they're in now, are not hip to the fact that we're 200 years in the future. We're like very antiquated in our thinking, and it's like you're afraid of a company that doesn't even exist anymore.
Right. And yeah, but watching it with like 2020 lens on, it's funny because it's like, oh,
Yeah.
you know, we're not far off from this scenario.
Right.
And then there's another really like crap line that Ripley, is given as like comic relief when they're trying to bait the xenomorphs into one area, and she says, all aliens proceed to level 1 over the intercom.
Right.
Just ridiculous, but I mean, it lands somewhat because it's coming out of her mouth. I don't know.
And speaking of the intercom, this is the first film where they have the ship's computer, instead of be like mother, it's called father.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the first time they did that.
And when do we get father again, in Covenant?
I forget. I think in one of those films, yeah, there's more of like some other twist on the ship's AI. But I thought it was kind of cheesy, though. It's like, just because you're flipping it from mother to father, I mean, just keep it mother. I don't know.
Well, I mean, especially if you're not going to like introduce the ship at all as a character, which we haven't really seen since Alien. I mean, in Aliens, you get a little bit more ship action, but like in Alien, Mother was a character. Like that ship was.
Right. So if it's not going to be a character, right? Why touch on it other than to be cutesy?
Stop wasting our time.
Yes. Amen.
I didn't like it because it was super cheesy, but towards the end in the third act, where Ripley falls into the nest, if you will, of that's like an undulating orgy of like biomechanical movement.
Right.
It's really like silly, but it was the most Giger-esque thing in the movie in terms of like it being really sexual and biomechanical. I don't know.
It came across more like an idea than something that was actually woven into the script sensically. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
it just seemed more like, here's an idea.
And it wasn't good. I mean, it was a cool shot. That was it. The only other things that I have are basically, I want to talk about memory, but the life cycle in this. They introduce the villain in the movie, the one that's in charge of breeding the xenomorphs. Brad Dourif, is that his name? Not Brad Dourif. What was his name?
Brad Dourif. Brad Dourif. His character is, let me see, Dr. Jonathan Geidman.
Okay.
Gedman? Dr. Jonathan Gedman. Gediman.
Whatever.
Weird last name to Gediman. Gediman.
Whatever. That works for me. He also gets just desserts, because he's, trapping these beautiful, perfect organisms, and they outsmart his fucking ass. And he gets cocooned, and
I wish they were more beautiful in this film.
Oh well.
They look ugly in this film to me.
They're velociraptors. That's all they are.
Right.
They're little raptors. But he goes on to, in that scene, after Ripley falls into this like orgy biomechanical like trampoline, I don't know what the fuck it is. She sinks down below into the nest where she sees Dr. Geidman, whatever, and he's gone batshit crazy, and he's basically, in the worst way a movie could possibly do, giving the audience exposition on exactly what's happening, literally explaining it, the life cycle to us. And he's talking about how the queen now has a second cycle cell. She no longer needs a host. She no longer needs to lay eggs, quote, only her womb and the creature inside. You gave her the biggest gift, he's talking to Ripley, which is a human reproductive system. So very cool, love it, but we don't get to explore that in any meaningful way. We just get shitty news. Like, that's awesome. Like, the queen now like doesn't need us. Like that's terrifying. They can do everything they need to do to destroy the universe now without hosts, and then we just don't explore that.
That's very true. I feel like that there's multiple ideas in this film that are sprinkled throughout, even the writhing nest that she falls into, that are just like cool ideas, but they're just not executed or incorporated or explored well. Yeah.
Like why, like I got like when like that's exciting. Like that's exciting. And then there's just like no payoff. Anyways, there's only one other thing I want to talk about. Do you have any other thoughts?
One other thing.
You go first.
So director Genet wanted to display Ripley's new powers, including a scene in which Ripley throws a basketball through a hoop while facing the opposite direction. Sigourney Weaver trained for 10 days and averaged 1 out of 6 baskets, although the distance required for filming was further than she had practiced. So Genet was concerned about the time spent on the shot and wanted to use either a machine to throw in the ball or insert it later using CGI. Weaver, however, was determined to make the shot authentic and insisted on doing it herself. The shot required many dozens of takes, during which none of the balls went in. The crew were going to give up, but gave Weaver one last shot, and in this take, she got the ball in perfectly. The ball was out of frame for a moment in this shot because of the framing, so it almost was irrelevant, but it's the shot they used. So when she throws it behind her and like sinks it, it's real, which is fucking awesome.
She takes
I just had to say that.
The whole like gymnasium scene is absurd.
Yeah.
But I did even have in my notes, like it was really cool, like just to watch like Ripley be like a badass with a basketball with against Ron when he doesn't realize like who the fuck he's like, you know, dealing with. Yeah, no, it was fun but really good. Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't realize that. That's great.
I could watch her as that character all day, just doing anything.
Yeah, it would be really interesting if, knock on wood, Awakenings ever gets produced and made, which clearly Corona has, if it's in production or ever was going to be.
I don't think it's in production. There was even an April Fool's article saying that it was in production. So we haven't heard anything for years. I really don't think it's in production. I think they started the script for it and they outlined the whole idea. Ridley did with maybe a few other people. Yeah. But they never went into actual filming that I know of. Just the developing.
Well, I guess I should have said pre-production. I know it's not filmed. Yeah. Because, yeah, I mean, Prometheus and Covenant were only like 2.5 years apart. It's been like 4.
I think they're going to like do what they did after Resurrection, which is just go a different direction. So after Resurrection, instead of doing another one, they did the AVP films. And then after 2 AVP films, they wanted to do another one, but they went another direction and they did the Prometheus and Covenant films. Yeah. So I think they'll go a different direction and maybe bring Sigourney back somehow.
Well, I say a lot. Awesome. Like if Awakenings were to happen, or whatever comes next, which is inevitable, somebody's going to get their hands on the mythology. But you know, what would Sigourney as Ripley look like now? And would it almost like could somebody? Is there a director and a visionary out there? Like, do they exist that is capable of like handling that and making it not stuff
Ridley Scott has any desire to bring her back. Ridley Scott, I don't think, because he's never mentioned her, and Awakening just doesn't seem to be heading in any direction that involves her. It's its own like updated spin on the story. It's almost like, yeah, he's not going to bring her back. But there have been other scripts and other filmmakers who have wanted to bring Sigourney Weaver back and almost do like an alternate canon where the first 2 films take place, but they ignore everything that came after, and then they do a third one. I think Neil Blomkamp. Yeah. So I would be way more excited to see that at this point than to see Alien Awakening. I mean,
quick sidebar. I meant to
Yeah.
ask you this, but I kept forgetting, but you just brought it back to the forefront of my mind. We've mentioned this in many of the previous videos in this series, that the onset or the insider term for the Xenomorph, the original Xenomorph, as it appeared in Alien, was nicknamed Big Chap or Big Chappie by Ridley Scott.
Mhm.
And we know Neil Blomkamp is a huge Ridley Scott fan. I'm a huge Neil Blomkamp fan, minus one of his movies. But he did make a movie called Chappie, and I'm just wondering, and I actually really love Chappie.
Yeah. I
Ridiculous
did
of a
too.
movie as it is.
I know. I liked it.
Chappie.
Of
But
course,
I'm just wondering, like,
District 9, but
District 9 is Bible, like it's
right.
Bible.
Yes.
But I'm just curious, like, do you think maybe he took like Chappie's a callback to like Big Chap?
It totally could be. I mean, someone should ask him, but who knows? But it could be. It was always Big Chap. I never heard it like Big Chappie, but like it could totally be a takeoff on Chap.
Well, we'll call him one more time.
Yes.
The only other like ridiculous thing in this movie, well, not the only other thing, but the only other thing I have written down is that like they actually use the word mainframe, like calls at one point in the movie is like, you gotta get to the mainframe, and I was like, the minute you say
Girl.
frame,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I mentioned Community last I think it was in the Aliens video, because Community is just brilliant, and there's even like in Community, the TV show, they even make fun of movies using the term mainframe. Like, you can't say the word mainframe. There's no mainframe. Like,
Right.
there's never a mainframe. It's
God,
not
that,
gonna exist.
you know what's crazy is like that film takes place ridiculously far into the future.
But they still have mainframes.
Right. So ridiculous.
Well, one of the things, and this is like the final thing I want to say about this movie, other than I just love Michael Wincott, is there's another thing that thematically doesn't really get fleshed out in this movie, but it's so delicious, and it's something that's getting explored in a lot of movies that are coming out now, a lot of more like independent movies, and it's also, I think, part and parcel because it's something that people in the real world are starting to study and explore, which is this idea of trauma being passed down genetically. Like, you can inherit trauma. Honey Boy, which I highly recommend, and it's total sidebar, but it really explores that.
Yeah,
like,
that was good.
To inherit something on a genetic level that is traumatic. And in Resurrection, ironically and surprisingly, they early on in like the first act talk about when number 8 is being allowed to live because she survived the C-section, this idea that she has all of the real Lieutenant Ripley's memories encoded in her DNA. And I just really like the idea of exploring like memories being passed down genetically. And ironically, the documentary to maybe end all documentaries on any film franchise is called Memory, and it's about the making of Alien, which you introduced me to.
Right.
And we highly recommend it, but I just feel like that's another lost opportunity in this movie. Like, you have this character who's the embodiment of 3 iterations of this woman, and has all of her memories. Like what would that look like if you fleshed that out more?
Right. Like, I would love.
Yes.
I mean, could you imagine if we got Sigourney Weaver as that character at that time in like a whole series instead of just a film? I mean, not a series that's anything like Resurrection, hopefully, but someone that's that interesting throughout a longer span of time would be so fascinating. I mean, Yeah. Very, very cool character and not such a cool movie.
Yeah, I mean the ending of the movie's a huge disappointment.
Yeah.
In the special edition, they are basically approaching Earth while the alien, excuse me, the newborn is getting sucked out, vacuum sucked out of the hull. And they ultimately land in apocalyptic Paris, Ripley and Call, and it's quasi-optimistic, and you don't know what's going to happen next. But in the theatrical version, like
Which I like better.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it's both were. I mean, the ending was just so disappointing. We deserved the queen, we wanted the queen, and we got the abomination that is the newborn.
Right. If this was the film that Fox was like, we're gonna adjust from Alien 3 and give them what they want,
right.
Then the solution was not the newborn. The solution would have been a queen. I mean, this would have been a good time to celebrate the franchise and just give fans what they want and not feel the pressure of having to be an original, but just really satisfying. And the queen would have done that. But yeah, they what's interesting that I know about the queen in this film is the actual queen that they used in this film is the exact full-size queen from Aliens, the second film.
Is it real?
Yes, it is the exact one with a fresh paint job. So in Aliens, it was like a very blue-black color scheme paint job, and they totally repainted it with brown tones. Ugh, disgusting. And they borrowed it from this guy named Bob Burns, who is this very, very interesting character. Who I have a book that he wrote. But if you've never heard of this guy, Bob Burns, look him up. But he's a very interesting guy. He's basically just a big film fanatic who had really an affinity for films and wasn't really like that much in the film industry, but had enough connections where he was able to collect a few film props, and it kind of snowballed once film companies found out that he was collecting them and preserving them and would agree not to sell them. They just would ship him like everything from the film when it was over. Like starting with the original Alien film. So he actually had one of the original Alien heads from the 79 Alien. I'm so jealous. And he would put on these Halloween shows at his house, which was in like a suburban neighborhood out in LA. He built like an Nostromo and did like a whole Alien show for Halloween. Anyway, when they wrapped Aliens, James Cameron, Fox gave him the actual alien queen head to store in his basement, and he wrote this awesome book called It Came from Bob's Basement, and about like all the film props that he has.
Is he still alive?
I think so, but I've tried to research that and I haven't found anything definitive. When I lived in LA, I sent a bunch of emails trying to hook up and meet him and see if I could view his collection, because he had always said in interviews that his stuff was very much open to the public and that people would drop by and that he was really happy to show it to people. So I was trying to get in touch with him and I never get in touch with him. And I think he's just kind of fallen out of view. I don't know. So I really don't know, but I've tried to find out like what the status is on him, but I haven't seen anything new. So he had the Alien Queen and the studio borrowed it back from him for Resurrection and repainted it. So that's why it looks so great, because it's 100% the same one, the same headpiece and mouth and head and everything. Yeah. So, and then they just kill it like that right away. It's crazy. But,
literally. Yeah. I mean, and like if they were going to introduce a newborn, because clearly like they've introduced the second cell cycle and a different, yet again, life cycle of the Xeno, it would make sense that there would be like a weird offspring. Like I get that.
Yeah.
But like if you were gonna give
us,
it
could have been so much cooler.
Who the fuck designed that thing? Like,
Coming right up. I'm gonna look it up.
why
I don't know, but we need to shame them publicly.
have they not been blacklisted from Hollywood? Like, what in the actual fuck? Like,
so it was Tom Woodruff Jr.'s company, Amalgamated Dynamics Incorporated, ADI.
it's
So
Tom
it was
Jr.
those assholes that did it.
Did he greenlight it though? Like, who's the dickhead that greenlit
Oh
it?
yeah, like they
Said that.
invented it, they designed it basically. I'm sure it was a combination of like the writers and the filmmaker, the director, and them, but they totally are the ones that designed it and created it. So
Can't understand anybody looking at that.
another reason why I don't like Tom Woodruff Jr. Sorry, Tom. I know you're a legend, but I don't like you. The coolest thing he did, and so let's give him credit where credit's due. He did, I believe he did Pumpkinhead, which is one of my favorite films.
Lance Henriksen, yeah.
Yes, with Lance Henriksen. Yeah, he played the demon in Pumpkinhead, which he actually did really extremely well. And
He designed it.
I don't know that he designed it, but he was actually in the suit, I believe. And he also did the effects and stuff for Death Becomes Her, which I don't know if you've seen that, but I always loved that movie. Yeah. It's just a weird, interesting movie. But so we'll say some positive things, but
well, I mean, he's really watching this channel, obviously.
Oh yeah.
Be careful to say. I don't appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't. The movie's fun to rewatch for sure, but I mean, what else are we gonna say? Like, I'm really unhappy at this moment because I'm being like, we've been doing this for 6 months just to get through these 10 fucking movies.
I know, that's what I want to say is that
we have to
bittersweet.
But this is such a good
It's sad. It's sad to say goodbye to our Alien series, but we did it and we did it well. I don't know if anyone else has talked to these films to the extent we have on YouTube. Not all of them.
No, and certainly nobody has the production value that we do. And
well, our Alien one was pretty good.
The Alien one was epic, thanks to you. But yeah,
They're here for the discussion, not the production values. They're here for the thought process.
I would hope so, but usually it's just like a sexy thumbnail. But
I'm good to close this one out whenever you are. I've said everything I want to say about it, other than I want to say thank you to everyone for hanging in there, because this was a labor of love and this was a massive effort on both our parts. And I think we can be proud of ourselves that we got through. It was 10 films, right?
10.
Wow.
10 films in 6 months.
10 films, like 3 of them were good.
A lot of limoncello and a lot of $3. Yeah.
Yes.
I will second that. Thank you to anyone who has tuned in, who has subscribed because of this, who's commented. We definitely have more reviews on the way. I think a really
Chad
exciting
and Mel movie hours coming up.
The pike, but yeah, thank you so much. And we're so sorry we had to watch Requiem, Resurrection.
Oh, I did want to say real quick that the only 2 films, okay, for all of them, I only cheated and didn't fully watch 2 of them. So Alien Covenant, I started, of course I've seen it a million times. I started Alien Covenant and I couldn't finish it. So that one I was like, fuck it, we'll just talk about it, because
Do you realize I watched every single one of these fucking movies and I
I said 2 out of 10. I didn't rewatch Resurrection because, come on, I didn't rewatch Resurrection.
I rewatched the special fucking edition. What do you mean, come on?
I saw more than you footage-wise, though, because I watched a lot more making-ofs and commentaries than you did. So if you want to put hour to hour, I win. Don't get mad at me now. We're at the end of this. I know this is brand new information for you.
We're
How do you
literally-
expect me to sit through Covenant again when I've already watched it multiple times? And
I
then,
like how you're waiting until the last like 30 seconds of a 6-month journey to tell me this.
well, here's what I did. For Resurrection, I just researched it a lot, but I didn't actually watch it. I just read a lot of articles and stuff about it.
You definitely took the easy
I'm
way.
well versed. You can't say I'm not. I had everything ready to go.
All right. Well,
On
I
that
mean,
note,
now that I'm deeply saddened and disappointed in my partner, thank you guys for watching.
no, come on. You got to give me more credit than that.
You are the Wayland to my Yautani. I love you. Thank you, anybody who's tuned in. If you haven't already, we invite you to subscribe. It does mean the world. Chad's music library will be linked down below as always, so please check out his catalog. And we love you, and we will see you on the other side. Cheers.
See you at the next film.